Hello everybody, we've got India versus Australia, Delhi, second test, day 2 review. So be between day 2's finished, day 3 is yet to begin. I'm going to do my review of yesterday, day 2, the whole test even a little bit, and looking forward to today for day 3. Going to start at 3 o'clock Australian time, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I think that's 10 o'clock Delhi time, not quite sure, but yeah, just a few hours away, so quite exciting there. And I've got to look at the state of the play first of all. So Australia got 263. For my mind, pass score was somewhere probably between about 250 and 300, considering it's a little bit harder to bat on than at Nagpur, where I'd said pass score was probably between 300 and 350. So 263 was within that margin, but a little bit on the low side. So it was roughly a pass score, wasn't an amazing score. However, I did feel like Australia had won just barely the first session, just barely won the second session, and just barely lost the third session of day 1, and therefore Australia was on top. It's sort of funny because you can look at scores and then you can look at the way the game is played. So if you look at the score, you might say, oh, well, that's not that good. But if you look at the way the game was played, you'd say, well, Australia won 2 sessions to India's 1. So you'd say, well, Australia was winning. Not miles ahead, but a little bit. And I think when it played out on the second day, that proved to be very true. So Australia had an amazing first session. So India lost 4 for 67, which is devastating for them, since they only have 5 specialist batsmen. And it left just Virat Kohli there to bat with the all-rounders, non-batting wicketkeeper we'll call him, and 2 absolute bunnies. So 3 all-rounders, so a little bit of batting to come. So he was in with Ravindra Jadeja, who was the first of the 3 all-rounders. I think they can really bat in any order, Jadeja, Ashwin and Axar Patel. So pretty much the same sort of quality. They're all a fair bit below the 5 proper batsmen. Probably all 3 realistically ahead of the wicketkeeper Bharat, who doesn't look like he's much of a batsman at all. And then we have the 2 tail-enders. So I really think the wicketkeeper should probably be batting at 9, but for some reason he's batting at 7, really just to break it up a bit. So, I mean, I know Bharat averaged 37 in first class cricket. I'm just looking at the way he plays. He hasn't looked very good in the 2 innings he's batted so far, because India only batted once before. Just hasn't really looked test standard as a batsman, and not even as a batsman keeping wicket. He's not really at that level. He looked like someone that should average about 15 in test cricket in the end of his career. We'll see, he might improve, he might get worse, we'll just see. I would have him batting at 9, but maybe India just felt that the balance was wrong by having him bat at 9, and they wanted to bat him at 7 and just shuffle those all-rounders around him. Anyway, so once we had Virat Kohli and Ravindra Jadeja in, India started to launch a bit of a comeback, and so that was quite exciting. In the second session with Jadeja and Kohli was really India's way. Now Kohli did end up falling, as did Jadeja. So Jadeja fell, I can't remember who got him out, but I think it might have been Lyon for his 5th wicket. And then Kohli had a bit of an unlucky one. It was reviewed and the umpiring was again appalling, getting a lot of things wrong. But this one was reviewed by India, so it was given out LBW initially, and then on review it looked like he might have hit it, but we couldn't be sure if he definitely hit it. If he had hit it, it would have been not out. But because they couldn't be sure, so they went with umpire's call on whether he hit it or not, and the LBW bit was clearly out. So if he didn't hit it, clearly out. If he did hit it, even just a little bit, he wasn't out. So just couldn't be sure on that one. Virat Kohli, very unlucky. I don't think we can really blame anyone. There's no cheating involved there. If it had been given not out, it would have probably stayed not out on review. So quite unlucky there. And look, I felt India did win the second session. We went into the third session and we had Axar Patel and Ravi Ashwin there. And I know Ashwin often bats at 5 or 6, but he was batting at 9. And they really, like to start with, they were over 100 runs behind, 7 wickets down. You'd think India would be having a big deficit 100 runs or maybe just a little bit less, and that would have set Australia up for a definite win, or very likely win at least. An 80-run lead batting first, you're expecting to win 9 times out of 10. But they really fought back. Their partnership was actually the biggest of the match, over 100. I think that's the biggest of the series so far. So it was mainly Axar Patel, but Ravi Ashwin, he was still there. Didn't look like he was going to get out. Didn't look quite as confident. Look, there were a lot of risks. There were a lot of maybes. There were a lot of miscatches and opportunities. And look, I think more than one umpiring decision that was the wrong one that would have given Australia a wicket. But we can't complain about that, because in these days of DRS, you get 3 DRSs you can get wrong. Australia wasted them. So we can't complain about that. In the old days we might have, but look, the umpiring wasn't necessarily favouring India. It was just bad. It was just all over the shop. So India managed to keep their referrals, and in today's DRS modern days, that's a tactic, and it was a good tactic, and that helped them to get that partnership going. And look, we got to, I think it was within 10 when Ravi Ashwin finally fell, and still 2 wickets left, and they were bunnies, but Axar Patel was still there. But then Axar Patel fell and they were both amazing catches, and suddenly India were 9 wickets down, trailing by 4. So, and then they got 3 more runs, trail, well, 1. Goodness, 1. And you know, and then Australia had to face what was supposed to be 13 overs, ended up being 12. Travis Head went into open because David Warner actually failed a concussion test, so he's ruled out for the rest of the match. And per current rules, we didn't used to have this, you used to just play a player short, but per modern rules you have a concussion substitute. Matthew Renshaw came in. I was expecting Renshaw to open, but they decided to go with Travis Head opening, which I think is a good move moving forward. So we want to see how Head can go as an opener, because Renshaw at the moment isn't quite test level, and Head is. So if we have to replace Warner moving forward, it's more likely to be Head than Renshaw, if Head can manage it. So Head went there, he had that pressure, he'd been dropped from the first test, and I think that was weighing on him, and he looked just brilliant. He just looked amazing. And if he can bat like that regularly, opening the batting, Warner's not going to be opening the batting anymore. Now, of course, I say that, and then there's nobody really to replace Warner with. So it's a tough prospect. We don't really have anyone in the middle order, although then we have Peter Handscomb. Maybe Peter Handscomb can slot into the middle order, and we've lost Warner. And we'll open with Khawaja and Head. Now, Khawaja didn't look that good. He got out reasonably cheaply, but then Australia got 61. So 1 for 61 after 12 overs, run rate of just over 5. Good for a one-day match even. And look, realistically, in a low-scoring match where we know that the odd ball is just going to be unplayable, just going to get you out no matter what you do. And it's not going to be, like, it's not every 5 overs or anything. Well, it might be every 5 or 10 overs, maybe 7 overs. And you just got to get however many runs you can get in that time. So you don't want to play with risks where you're going to get out by being too risky. But you also know that if you just defend, you're going to get out defending. So if you go 5 overs and you've got 10 runs, you're going to get out. You go 5 overs, you get 40 runs, you're going to get out. As long as you don't get out in those 5 overs, getting your 40 runs just from playing a loose shot, I think you're fine. And that's what you do when you've got these hard to play wickets that favour bowlers. And that's what this is. This is a bowler friendly wicket. This is much more of a bowler friendly wicket than Nagpur. Now, Nagpur had some low scores, but they were doctored low scores, and they were confidence low scores. They were, if you look at the pitch genuinely, it was probably a 300 run wicket. And I think if there wasn't doctoring, there wasn't mystery ointment, you would have seen Australia might have got somewhere close to 300. And I don't mean we still might have lost. I mean, India got 400, but it wouldn't have been such a big margin. So I think that's the difference here. This pitch is harder to bat on generally, but it's also not favouring one side or the other. So yeah, I'd say Australia's just a little bit on top. I think if you look at it from day one, I'd probably say 3-2-2-3 for the sessions on day one. So that would be Australia would have been 8 to 7 ahead of sessions or in session parts after day one. 8 to 7, not much of a margin. And I'd say on day two, probably would have been 4 to 1, 2 to 3, 3 to 2 for the day. So you'd probably say it was Australia's day 9 to 6, which puts Australia overall up, what's that, about 17 to 13. So the margin's a little bit bigger than it was after day one, but it's still not a massive margin. So 17 to 13, if you've got 5 points for a session, one good session, India will be ahead. So obviously if India can take 9 wickets in the first session, they'll be winning. But even if they just take 3 or 4, they'll probably be on top. And I think that a pass score for Australia and for India to chase, so they'll be the same pretty much, one run different, be about 220. So under that, India will be on top. Over that, Australia will. And it's no guarantee that India can't chase 300 or that Australia can't defend 150. But I think 220 is around about your pass score to chase. Time will be a factor as well because the pitch will deteriorate as we head into day 4 and 5. So India will want Australia to be out on day 3, just today. They won't want to be batting on day 4, or at least not very much on day 4. So it's going to be a tough one. I'd say Australia's just on top, just ahead. I wouldn't say on top, that's probably the wrong word. But yeah, it's a good match, great match at the moment. That's it from me. Bye bye now.